Let's get right into it. Number 12. Sleeping in on weekends. Here's the deal. You worked hard all week. You set 5 alarms for 6 a.m. every single morning. You dragged your half-dead carcass out of bed. And you told yourself that on Saturday you were going to sleep until your body just naturally woke up. Pure, beautiful, guilt-free sleep. The kind of sleep people write poems about. And then you slept until noon. Congratulations. You just gave your brain a hangover. This is called social jet lag, and it is exactly as miserable as it sounds. Your brain runs on something called a circadian rhythm, an internal clock that regulates when you feel awake, when you feel groggy, when you're sharp, and when you're basically a warm houseplant. This clock is obsessive. It tracks sunrise. It tracks your meals. It tracks the exact time you usually shuffle to the bathroom. It does not take weekends off. When you sleep until noon on Saturday and then try to fall asleep at 11 p.m. on Sunday night because Monday is already ruining your life, your brain is sitting there going, asterisk, I don't know what time it is. I don't know what day it is. I don't know anything anymore. Asterisk, that confusion doesn't just disappear by Monday morning. Research shows that chronic social jet lag is linked to impaired memory consolidation, slower reaction times, worse mood regulation, and, here's the beautiful irony, more fatigue throughout the week. You slept in to feel more rested. Your brain is now more tired. You did this to yourself. Your well-intentioned laziness is functionally identical to flying to Tokyo every Friday night and flying back Sunday. Except you didn't even get to go to Tokyo. You just lay there in your own blankets, slowly jet-lagging yourself into cognitive mush. Number 11. Listening to music while you work. You've got a playlist. It's called something like Deep Focus or Study Beats, or just the one that has that song. You put your headphones on, you open your laptop, and you think, this is it. This is productivity. The music is going to carry me. I am a main character. Your brain, meanwhile, is now doing 2 jobs. Here's the thing people don't love to hear. Your brain does not actually multitask. What it does is switch rapidly between tasks, burning energy each time it has to redirect attention. And music, especially music with lyrics, competes directly with the language processing part of your brain. The same region you use to read, write, and think in words is the same region decoding the lyrics of whatever song you've got on. So when you're trying to write an email while someone is literally singing words into your ears, your brain is basically running 2 programs simultaneously on a machine that was never designed to run 2 programs simultaneously. The result? You produce work that is slightly worse than you'd expect, at a pace that is slightly slower than it feels, and your comprehension takes a quiet hit that you'll never be able to directly measure. Which is the worst kind of damage, honestly. You can't even feel it happening. You're just sitting there bopping along, thinking you're in a study montage, while your prefrontal cortex is silently filing a complaint with HR. Instrumental music? A little better. Familiar music at low volume? Borderline acceptable. But that one banger you can't resist turning up? You're not working anymore. You're just sitting near a laptop while you enjoy a private concert. Number 10. Using GPS for every single trip. Picture this. You have driven to the same grocery store 47 times. You know exactly which lane to get in. You know where the weird pothole is. You could do this drive in your sleep, and some days you basically are. But you still open Google Maps. Just in case. Just to feel safe. Your hippocampus is crying. The hippocampus is the part of your brain responsible for spatial navigation and memory formation. It's one of the most plastic regions of your brain, meaning it literally grows and changes based on how much you use it. Studies on London taxi drivers, who had to memorize the entire map of London before GPS existed, showed they had measurably larger hippocampi than average people. Their brains physically expanded from the effort of navigating. Your brain, conversely, is doing the opposite. When you outsource navigation entirely to a device, the hippocampus gets to relax. And when the hippocampus relaxes indefinitely, it starts shrinking. Not in a dramatic, I can see it on the scan way, more in a slow, quiet atrophy that coincides with things like slightly worse memory, slightly reduced ability to form new mental maps, and a creeping inability to figure out which direction you're facing when you walk out of a subway station. GPS is useful. Nobody is saying throw your phone into a river and triangulate by the stars. But your brain is a use it or lose it organ, and the navigation department hasn't gotten a workout since 2009. You don't need to know where everything is. You just need to occasionally try to figure it out. Let yourself be a little lost. Your hippocampus will treat it like a spa day. Number 9. Checking your phone every 8 minutes. You don't even realize you're doing it. You pick up your phone, look at it, find nothing interesting, put it down, and then 45 seconds later you pick it up again. Not because anything changed. Not because someone texted you. Just because your hand is apparently running a separate agenda that your brain hasn't been briefed on. This is not laziness. This is a dopamine loop, and your phone was professionally engineered to create one. Every time you check your phone and find a notification, a like, a reply, a news alert, anything, your brain releases a small hit of dopamine. Every time you check and find nothing, your brain gets slightly anxious. So it tells you to check again. Soon. Just in case. The unpredictability is actually the point. Slot machines work the same way. Variable reward schedules, where you sometimes get something and sometimes don't, are the most addictive reinforcement pattern known to behavioral psychology. Your phone is a slot machine you carry in your pocket and consult during funerals. Here's what this does to your brain over time. It absolutely destroys your baseline attention span. The prefrontal cortex, which handles sustained focus, deep thinking, and decision-making, needs long, uninterrupted stretches of engagement to do its best work. When you interrupt yourself every 8 minutes, you're not just losing those 8 minutes, you're resetting a cognitive warm-up process that takes 15 to 20 minutes to complete. Researchers call this attention residue. Even after you put the phone down, part of your brain is still half thinking about what you just saw. You are never fully present. You are a ghost haunting your own concentration. The worst part? The more you do it, the shorter the intervals get. Your threshold for boredom quietly lowers. Tasks that used to feel engaging start feeling unbearable after 60 seconds. Your brain has been recalibrated not by accident but by design. Number 8. Never letting yourself be bored. Boredom has a reputation problem. We treat it like a malfunction. An uncomfortable void that must be filled immediately with content, noise, conversation, or at minimum, staring at a ceiling fan while a podcast plays in the background. The second your brain has nothing to do, you hand it something to do. You are a very attentive and deeply misguided caretaker. But boredom isn't a malfunction. It's a feature. When your brain enters a state of low external stimulation, when it's not processing a task, a screen, or a conversation, it activates something called the default mode network. This is a sprawling web of brain regions that kicks in specifically when you're not focused on the outside world. And what does it do in there? It consolidates memories, processes emotions you haven't had time to sit with. It makes unexpected connections between unrelated ideas. It generates creativity. It is functionally your brain's maintenance mode. Every great shower thought you've ever had came from your default mode network. Every sudden solution to a problem you'd given up on. Every moment where you spaced out staring at a wall and then had a slightly unsettling insight about your own life. That was your default mode network doing its job. When you eliminate boredom entirely, you eliminate the conditions for that process. Your brain never gets to run its background programs. Memories don't consolidate as efficiently. Creative thinking flatlines. And emotionally unprocessed experiences just pile up. You're not relaxing. You're deferring maintenance until the whole system runs slow. Put the phone down sometimes. Stare out a window. Let your brain wander off without a leash. It knows what it's doing. You apparently do not. Number 7. Eating lunch at your desk. You're busy. You know you're busy because you're eating a sad sandwich over your keyboard at 1:30 p.m. while answering emails with one hand and trying to remember what vegetables look like with the other. This is productivity. This is commitment. This is slowly eroding your brain's ability to regulate stress, and also your enjoyment of sandwiches simultaneously. Here's what's happening. Your brain links environments to mental states through a process called context-dependent memory and mood conditioning. When you spend 8+ hours at your desk working, your brain learns deeply, automatically, without asking your permission, that the desk means work mode. Elevated cortisol, narrowed focus, task-oriented thinking. That's the desk. That is what the desk means now. When you eat at the desk, you're not just multitasking. You're telling your nervous system that there is no such thing as a break. Lunch doesn't register as recovery. It registers as a slightly confusing work interval where your hands are doing something your brain wasn't briefed on. Your cortisol stays elevated. Your parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest side that should be running during meals, never fully activates. Which means your digestion is worse, your stress levels don't dip, and you return to the afternoon portion of your workday having recovered approximately 0%. Studies on cognitive restoration show that even a 10-minute break in a different physical location produces measurable improvements in afternoon focus and mood. The brain needs a change of scenery to register that a break actually happened. Your desk cannot be the location of both the problem and the solution. That is not how geography or neuroscience works. Go eat somewhere else. Eat outside. Eat in a hallway. Eat in your car like a person having a minor life crisis. All of those options are neurologically superior to the desk. Number 6. Multitasking like it's a personality. Some people list multitasking as a skill on their resume. They say it with pride. They say it the way someone might say, "I'm fluent in 3 languages," or, "I once rescued a dog from a river." Multitasking, as though doing several things badly at once is something to brag about on a document that determines your professional future. Here is the truth that cognitive neuroscience has been trying to tell you since roughly 2001. Multitasking is not a skill. It is a myth. What you are actually doing is called task switching, and it is slowly grinding your brain into a fine, unfocused powder. The prefrontal cortex, your brain's executive control center, can only hold one complex cognitive task in focus at a time. When you switch between tasks, it pays a cost called a switching penalty. There's a brief but real lag as your brain drops the mental context of one task, picks up the mental context of another, and reorients itself. This lag is tiny on its own. But when you're switching between email, a report, a Slack message, and a podcast about true crime every 90 seconds, those lags add up into something researchers estimate costs you up to 40% of your productive cognitive capacity in a given workday. 40%. Gone. Not because you're lazy, not because you're unfocused, but because you are doing exactly what you think smart, productive people do. And it gets worse with repetition. Chronic multitaskers, people who regularly juggle multiple streams of information, actually perform worse on attention tasks than people who don't multitask often. They're more distractible, worse at filtering irrelevant information, and slower at switching between tasks when it actually counts. They've trained their brains to expect chaos. Their brains deliver chaos on demand. They have accidentally optimized for being bad at focusing, and they've done it by practicing very hard every single day. Your resume is a lie. A charming, well-intentioned, neurologically documented lie. Number 5. Doom scrolling before bed. It's 11 p.m. You're in bed. You're tired. You know you're tired because your eyes feel like they've been lightly sandpapered. But before you sleep, you just want to check what's going on. Just a quick scroll. 5 minutes. You'll just look at a few things and then put the phone down like a responsible adult who has their life together. 45 minutes later, you have watched a video of a raccoon stealing bread, read a headline about geopolitical instability, watched someone's kitchen renovation, and developed a vague but persistent sense of dread that you cannot specifically name. You are now wide awake. Your bedroom ceiling is suddenly very interesting. This is a 2-system disaster, and both systems failed at the same time. First, the blue light from your screen suppresses melatonin, the hormone your brain uses to signal that it is time, specifically, to fall asleep. Your brain cannot tell the difference between your phone screen and daylight. It just sees light, assumes it's daytime, and quietly cancels the melatonin broadcast. Your sleep onset, the time it takes to actually fall asleep, gets pushed back. The quality of your early sleep cycles degrades. You wake up tomorrow slightly more tired than you should be, and the cycle continues. Second, and arguably worse, your brain consolidates memories and processes emotional information during sleep, particularly during REM cycles. When you flood your brain with emotionally charged content, outrage, anxiety, heartwarming animal content, more outrage. Right before sleep, You are essentially handing your subconscious a massive pile of unprocessed emotional laundry and saying, "Here, deal with this tonight." Your dreams get weirder. Your stress hormones stay slightly elevated. You wake up and cannot explain why you feel vaguely overwhelmed before 8 a.m. The raccoon was not worth it. The raccoon is never worth it. Number 4. Living in a comfortable routine. Wait, routine is good, right? Routine is what therapists recommend. Routine is what every productivity guru, sleep doctor, and wellness influencer has told you to build. You wake up at the same time, you do your morning thing, you follow your system. You are a person of structure, person of discipline, and your brain is quietly going numb. Here's the tension nobody mentions. Routine is great for your mental health baseline but terrible for cognitive growth if it calcifies into complete predictability. Your brain develops and maintains neural pathways through a process driven by novelty and challenge. When you encounter something new, a new route, a new skill, a new social situation, a new problem, your brain fires across unfamiliar networks, builds new synaptic connections, and in doing so, literally expands its own capacity. Neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity. Your brain is capable of it well into old age. But neuroplasticity needs raw material. It needs situations your brain hasn't already automated. The problem with deep routine is that your brain, being extremely efficient, automates everything it can. Once it's learned a task, your commute, your morning coffee ritual, your usual lunch order, your standard conversations, it stops actively engaging with it. It runs those behaviors on something close to autopilot, freeing up resources for other things. This is not bad when it's your commute. It is very bad when it's most of your waking life. The research on cognitive reserve, the brain's resilience against age-related decline, consistently shows that people who regularly expose themselves to new experiences, challenging learning, and unfamiliar environments build thicker, more connected, more durable brains over time. People who don't. Your comfort zone is comfortable because your brain is asleep in there. And the longer it stays asleep, the harder it is to wake back up. Number 3. Drinking coffee the moment you wake up. You need it. You know you need it. The idea of facing the morning without it feels like being asked to defuse a bomb while someone describes a car alarm in your ear. Coffee is not a beverage at this point. It is a psychological load-bearing wall. And the second your alarm goes off, you are already thinking about it. Here's the problem. You are drinking it at exactly the wrong time. Your body produces a hormone called cortisol, yes, the stress hormone, but also the wake-up hormone, in a natural surge that peaks roughly 30 to 45 minutes after you wake up. This surge is your body's built-in espresso shot. It's your biological alarm system doing its actual job, boosting alertness, sharpening focus, and getting your systems online for the day. It is free. It requires no subscription. It has been running since before Starbucks existed. When you slam a coffee during that cortisol window, two things happen. First, you blunt the cortisol response. Your body registers that something else is handling alertness and begins to down-regulate its own production over time. Second, the caffeine is competing with a system that's already working, which means you're not actually getting the full benefit of either. You're throwing a second alarm clock into a room where the first one is already going off. The optimal window for caffeine, according to neuroscientist Andrew Huberman and a genuinely uncomfortable amount of chronobiology research, is 90 minutes to 2 hours after waking. Let the cortisol do its thing first. Then drink the coffee when your natural alertness is beginning to dip and the caffeine can actually fill the gap it was designed to fill. You have been undermining your own nervous system every single morning. And you've been doing it with tremendous enthusiasm. Number 2. Never truly doing nothing. Modern life has developed a deeply suspicious relationship with stillness. If you're not doing something, you're wasting time. If you're sitting quietly, you should at least be meditating, which immediately becomes another task to complete correctly, track with an app, and feel bad about skipping. Relaxation has been gamified. Rest has been optimized. Even your downtime has deliverables. And your brain has not had a genuine break since approximately 2012. There's a concept in neuroscience called mental fatigue, and it's different from physical tiredness. Your brain does not get tired from working too hard. It gets tired from sustained directed attention, the kind of focused, goal-oriented thinking you do when you're working, planning, analyzing, or even actively relaxing toward a goal. Every hour you spend in that mode depletes a specific cognitive resource. And unlike your muscles, which recover during sleep, directed attention resources recover most efficiently through something called involuntary attention, the kind of effortless, undirected mental engagement you get from watching clouds, sitting near water, wandering without a destination, or staring out of a window while your mind goes wherever it wants. This is attention restoration theory, and it has been quietly validated by decades of research showing that exposure to natural, low-demand environments measurably restores cognitive function, reduces mental fatigue, and improves focus on return to demanding tasks. You don't need a productivity hack. You don't need a better morning routine or a new journaling system. You need to sit somewhere pleasant and think about absolutely nothing for 20 minutes, and you need to stop treating that as a failure of ambition. The brain is not a machine that runs better when pushed harder. It is an organ that requires genuine, unstructured rest to perform at the level you are currently demanding of it around the clock. Do nothing, on purpose, badly, without tracking it. Number 1. Thinking you're the exception. Here it is. The habit that quietly sits beneath every other habit on this list and makes all of them worse. The one that lets you watch a video about exactly what's harming your brain, nod along thoughtfully, and then go do all of it anyway, because somewhere in the back of your mind, you have already decided that the research probably applies to other people. You pull this move more than you realize. Psychologists call it optimism bias, the well-documented tendency for people to believe they are less at risk from negative outcomes than the average person. Everyone thinks they're the exception. Everyone thinks they handle their phone better than most. Sleep deprivation affects them less severely. Their multitasking is somehow functional, their stress is manageable, their routine is fine. The data says otherwise, but the data is about other people who are presumably weaker than you. Here's the brutal irony. Optimism bias is a cognitive distortion. It's a flaw in the way the brain assesses risk and probability, not a reflection of actual ability. And the people most prone to it are the most confident ones. You overestimate your cognitive resilience not because you have more of it, but because your brain is specifically bad at evaluating your own limitations from the inside. Which means the habits on this list hit hardest on the people most convinced they're immune to them. The person who says, "I work great on 5 hours of sleep," has almost certainly never been tested on 8. The person who says, "I'm a great multitasker," has never measured their output doing one thing at a time. The person who says, "I don't really scroll that much," has never looked at their screen time report with the lights on. Your brain is not special. It is human. It is subject to the same fatigue, the same dopamine loops, the same atrophy, the same desperate need for rest and novelty and silence as every other brain that has ever tried to hold itself together in a world specifically designed to take it apart. The habits that hurt you most are the ones you're most convinced aren't hurting you. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.